All right, welcome everyone to January 20th Chronological Bible reading. Again, we are going through the Bible chronologically, and we are using the 1 year Chronological Bible. That is the New Living Translation. Just in case you want to invite somebody else to jump in and you're wondering what I'm using. So we are in Job chapter 5 now. And Job has had all of these things happen to him. The enemy has attacked his life, and in the midst of being attacked, God is our refuge and our strength. And Job is finding that, and he's a tribute to the fact that God, He is faithful, even when things really go crazy in our lives. And we're dealing now with some of Job's friends who are not so friendly in their response to Job's suffering. And so let's go ahead and jump into Job chapter 5 as we find out what else his friend Eliphaz has to say about the suffering that he's going through. And it says, Eliphaz says, "Cry for help, but will anyone answer you?" What a terrible thing to say, right? Cry for help, but will anyone answer you? Which of the angels will help you? Surely resentment destroys the fool, and jealousy kills the simple. I have seen that fools may be successful for the moment, but then comes sudden disaster. Their children are abandoned far from help. They are crushed in court with no one to defend them. The hungry devour their harvest, even when it is guarded by brambles. The thirsty pant after their wealth. But evil does not spring from the soil, and trouble does not sprout from the earth. People are born for trouble as readily as sparks fly up from a fire. If I were you, I would go to God and present my case to him. He does great things, too marvelous to understand. He performs countless miracles. He gives rain for the earth and water for the fields. He gives prosperity to the poor and protects those who suffer. He frustrates the plans of schemers, so the work of their hands will not succeed. He traps the wise in their own cleverness, and so their cunning schemes are thwarted. They find it is dark in the daytime, and they grope at noon as if it were night. He rescues the poor from the cutting words of the strong, and rescues them from the clutches of the powerful. And so at last the poor have hope, and the snapping jaws of the wicked are shut. But consider the joy of those corrected by God. Do not despise the discipline of the Almighty when you sin. For though he wounds, he also bandages. He strikes, but his hands also heal. From 6 disasters he will rescue you. Even in the 7th he will keep you from evil. He will save you from death in time of famine. From the power of the sword in the time of war, you will be safe from slander and have no fear when destruction comes. You will laugh at destruction and famine. Wild animals will not terrify you. You will be at peace with the stones of the field, and its wild animals will be at peace with you. You will know that your home is safe. When you survey your possessions, nothing will be missed. You will have many children. Your descendants will be as plentiful as grass. You will go to the grave at a ripe old age, like a sheaf of grain harvested at the proper time. We have studied life and found all this to be true. Listen to my counsel and apply it to yourself. So Job responds, Job 6. Then Job spoke again. If my misery could be weighed and my troubles be put on the scales, they would outweigh all the sands of the sea. That is why I spoke impulsively, for the Almighty has struck me down with his arrows. Their poison infects my spirit. God's terrors are lined up against me. Don't I have a right to complain? Don't wild donkeys bray when they find no grass, and oxen bellow when they have no food? Don't people complain about unsalted food? Does anyone want the tasteless white of an egg? My appetite disappears when I look at it. I gag at the thought of eating it. Oh, that I might have my request, that God would grant my desire. I wish he would crush me. I wish he would reach out his hand and kill me. At least I can take comfort in this. Despite the pain, I have not denied the words of the Holy One. But I don't have the strength to endure. I have nothing to live for. Do I have the strength of a stone? Is my body made of bronze? No, I am utterly helpless, without any chance of success. One should be kind to a fainting friend. But you accuse me, without any fear of the Almighty. my brothers, you have proved as unreliable as a seasonal brook that overflows its banks in the spring when it is swollen with ice and melting snow. But when the hot weather arrives, the water disappears. The brook vanishes in the heat. The caravans turn aside to be refreshed, but there is nothing to drink, so they die. The caravans from Tema search for this water. The travelers from Sheba hope to find it. They count on it, but are disappointed. And when they arrive, their hopes are dashed. You, too, have given no help. You have seen my calamity, and you are afraid. But why? Have I ever asked you for a gift? Have I begged for anything of yours for myself? Have I asked you to rescue me from my enemies, or to save me from ruthless people? Teach me, and I will keep quiet. Show me what I've done wrong. Honest words can be painful, but what do your criticisms amount to? Do you think your words are convincing when you disregard my cry of desperation? You would even send an orphan into slavery or sell a friend. Look at me. Would I lie to your face? Stop assuming my guilt, for I have done no wrong. Do you think I'm lying? Don't I know the difference between right and wrong? Is not all human life a struggle? Our lives are like that of a hired hand, like a worker who longs for the shade, like a servant waiting to be paid. I too have been assigned months of futility, long and weary nights of misery. Lying in bed, I think, when will it be morning? But the night drags on, and I toss till dawn. My body is covered with maggots and scabs. My skin breaks open, oozing with pus. And then Job cries out to God in Job 7, my days fly faster than a weaver's shuttle. They end without hope. Oh God, remember that my life is but a breath, and I will never again feel happiness. You see me now, but not for long. You will look for me, but I will be gone. Just as a cloud dissipates and vanishes, those who die will not come back. They are gone forever from their home, never to be seen again. I cannot keep from speaking. I must express my anguish. My bitter soul must complain. Am I a sea monster or a dragon that you must place me under guard? I think my bed will comfort me, and sleep will ease my misery. But then you shatter me with dreams, and you terrify me with visions. I would rather be strangled, rather die, than suffer like this. I hate my life, and I don't want to go on living. Oh, leave me alone for my few remaining days. What are people that you should make so much of us, that you should think of us so often? For you examine us every morning, and you test us every moment. Why won't you leave me alone, at least long enough for me to swallow? If I have sinned, what have I done to you, O watcher of all humanity? Why make me your target? Am I a burden to you? Why not just forgive my sin and take away my guilt? For soon I will lie down in the dust and die. When you look for me, I will be gone. Wow. I mean, these are really powerful words. Okay, so I'm not going to have a really long commentary on it today, but I do want to point out a few things. So Job, in his first time that he speaks up, he basically says, "Man, I wish I'd never been born because I'm crushed under this." You can imagine he's lost everything, including his children, and he's just like, my life is over. And then his friend comes along, his three friends, and they come and they sit down next to him, and then all of a sudden they start telling him, that it's because he has to have sinned somewhere along the line, and then Job responds, and see what Eliphaz, the fact that Eliphaz references his children, right? Look at how cruel it is that Eliphaz is being. He says he gives prosperity to the poor, and he traps the wise in their own cleverness. So their cunning schemes. You got to see when you're reading in here how deeply offensive these things are that he's saying. He says, but evil does not spring up from the soil. Trouble doesn't sprout from the earth. It doesn't just happen out of nowhere. People are born for trouble. Job, you must have done something here. And he frustrates the plans of the schemers. I mean, why would he be saying this? he's calling Job a schemer, and he must be doing something in secret that God is coming after him for. And and then he says in verse 17, listen, do not despise the discipline of the Almighty when you sin. Like you must have sinned. And he's just crushing him. And he says in verse 24, and remember, his children died when their houses collapsed. He says, verse 24, you'll know that your home is safe, right? When you survey your possessions, nothing will be missing. Look at verse 25. How cruel this guy must have been. You will have many children. Your descendants will be as plentiful as the grass. Job just lost his children. And Eliphaz is crushing him with his words. And so Job's response is, oh boy, the guy's lucky Job didn't cuss him out. I mean, really. And Job responds with such righteous, he doesn't go off on him, and he just says, he says, if misery could be weighed, my troubles put on a scale, they would outnumber the sand of the sea. This guy is really hurting so bad, and he says, I've not denied the Holy One. And he goes on and he says, this is where you see the depth of his pain, where Job says in chapter 6, I have nothing to live for. And then he tells his friend, you should be kind to a fainting friend, but you accuse me without any fear of the Almighty. He says, show me in verse 24 what I've done wrong. Stop assuming my guilt. So I guess I would just want to say this. I think that there's something that we can, learn here from this. For one, let's just pay attention to the way Job is. So first of all, he's suffering, right? He's not going after God. I mean, he's asking God, why are you doing this? That's normal. It's normal. It's okay in the midst of suffering to ask God why he's doing this. I would say this. It's normal to feel pain and to admit to your friends and to God, I don't know if I can do this, and this is killing me. I don't even feel like I've got a life left. Okay, Job says that. He's not suicidal, but he's like, I wish that my life was over, and I just wish God would just take me, and so it's okay to admit you have pain to people and to God. That's not only that, it's important though, in the midst of admitting, not to accuse God in a way that is like raising a fist at God. But Job says, God, I don't understand it. I wish that this was different. I wish that you would take it away. But he doesn't accuse God. And there's a big difference between admitting and even saying, boy, I don't like this, to the accusing God and saying, God, how he doesn't accuse God's character. So even in the midst of it all, we can admit we have pain, admit that we don't like it, but be careful, but do it in a way that doesn't impugn the character of God, because God is good. And he is faithful, and Job will come to find this out later on. God does redeem even the pain. Okay, and so we get to know the end of the story. But as we're journeying here, we see that Job does not give up on his relationship with God, but he is certainly in misery. And another thing that we see is we just learned lessons from Job's friends. We got to be very, very careful about heaping upon people's misery and jumping to judgment and conclusions when we don't necessarily see the whole story. And so these are just some really important lessons to learn from the book of Job so far. So I'm really looking forward to jumping back in tomorrow to continue reading in Job, and we'll be in Job chapter 8. I hope you have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.